Hey everybody, welcome back to Walking with Jesus Daily. This is the recording for day 317 as we continue on in our study of the life of Jesus. We are at the point now where Jesus is going to be led away for crucifixion. We are at the point now where Jesus has been flogged, scourged, had a crown of thorns placed on his head, mocked, hated, replaced by a robber, thief, murderer, completely deserted. I mean, like, how much can one person take in one small period of time, as he knows what's coming, and yet he washes the feet of his disciples? One huge last lesson before his biggest one, trying to prepare his disciples for what's coming. And they're not even around for this portion. We're going to be, once again, in all of the Gospels. John's is very short, but we'll be Matthew 27 through 34, Mark 15, 16 through 24, Luke 23, 26 through 31, and John 19, 17. I'm just going to read this one verse of John 19, 17 first. And this will all be in the ESV, and we'll move forward with our lesson today. I do hope that you have had time to sit in prayer today. And by prayer, I mean silence before God. He already knows what you're going to pray and what you're going to say before you say it. But you don't know what He's going to say. So I would just recommend with my whole heart learning how to sit quietly before God, before the throne. Just dedicate some time. If this is new to you, if this is a new way of prayer or thinking about prayer. I think there's a reason why Jesus' prayer was so short when he was teaching his disciples. So I think maybe what he was teaching was honor God, give thanks to God, ask for what you need, forgive, and sit in silence and just listen. John 19, 17 reads like this. So they took Jesus, and he went out, bearing his own cross, to the place called the place of a skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. Bearing his own cross. This is not just like a made-up portion of what we read. It's what actually happened. Matthew 27 through 34. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him, and they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and twisting together a crown of thorns. I don't know why I can't say thorns. Twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head, and put a reed in his right hand. And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews." They knelt before him and mocked him. And we say, how dare they do something like this? Do you kneel before him when you're in need and mock him by the way you live your life when you're not? Do you call him King and Lord when it's convenient or when you're with the right people, but your life shows a different King and Lord? I was just thinking about this today, how kind of ashamed I am of this. I don't use social media very often. I try not to use it. I try to use it as little as possible. The last time I used it was just to see what kind of reaction I would get, and it's about what I expected. But regardless, I had a thing for a while where I had to post 2 Instagram posts per month of my son using a certain golf device so that I could get a good deal on the golf device. It was like half off, and we wanted it, but we weren't going to pay the full amount for it. It was a really good deal. So, but I thought, man, if people went back and they met me for the first time and they went online and they looked me up and they looked for my Instagram, all they would see is golf swings of my children. All they would see that my God is the game of golf. Doesn't matter what I wrote in there. That's what they see, and I'm ashamed of that because I was literally just doing it because I had to, but I'm going to have the platform. It should be what's actually most important to me. If you're going to use social media, look back on it. It's going to show the most important things of your life. When I look back years ago, it was food and golf and fun things that I did. I was the Lord of my life. I called myself a Christian, but it was only when it was convenient for me. And I'm not calling you out if this is what you do, but I mean, for real. If other people look at your life and that's what they see, what do you think God sees? Hail, King of the Jews! And they spit on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. They spit on him and took the reed and they struck him on the head where that crown of thorns was sitting. And when they had mocked him, when they were through beating him, spitting on him, when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. Before they humiliate him on a cross, they wanted to pull him into the headquarters and make sure that they hailed him as king. It says, as they went out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Oddly enough, right? Simon? What Simon should have been there? This is not a knock on Peter. We're no different. Simon by name, Simon of Cyrene. They compelled this man to carry the cross that Jesus was bearing. Do you see what happened here? Here comes Jesus, beaten, spit on, half naked, carrying his cross. They made them carry what they were going to be hung on. Jesus carried his cross, but I'm guessing maybe because he was beaten so severely, he was struggling with it. So they asked this man, Simon of Cyrene, to carry the cross of Jesus. Now, I've seen different portrayals of this where they forced him to carry it. Maybe they did. But to follow Jesus, our flesh has to be crucified. We have to deny ourselves and pick up that cross. Jesus said this far before they knew he was going to be crucified. Maybe in this moment, Simon felt compelled or compassionate, and maybe he didn't. Maybe he just didn't want the Romans to kill him. I don't know. At least from Matthew's reading. And he carries the cross of Jesus, and it says, when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. I believe this was meant to help with the pain, to help ease the pain. Jesus had none of it. Mark's account, in Mark 15, 16 through 24. And the soldiers led him away inside the palace, that is, the governor's headquarters. And they called together the whole battalion. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on him. And they began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews." And they were striking his head with a reed and spitting on him and kneeling down in homage to him. Have you ever been spat on because of hatred or mocking? I have not, but maybe some of you have. I don't know how. Before, I know how I would have responded to this, but I'm not sure how I would respond to being spit on right now. Or mocked. Or stripped. Or struck. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes back on him. And they led him out to crucify him. And they compelled a passerby, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country. Listen to this. The father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross. Now we know this is a man from Cyrene coming in from the country. And he had sons, Alexander and Rufus, is what this sounds like. They compelled him to carry the cross of Jesus. It says, and they brought him to the place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his garments among them, casting lots for them to decide what each should take. It says, and they crucified him. They took his hands and they stretched him out on a cross that belonged to someone else. The cross that he carried himself, and then shared that load with Simon, who had 2 sons. Do you see that Simon carried a cross that he actually should have bore? Not Simon, the murderer or robber, Simon the father. And on each side of him, someday, I don't know how old his kids were, but should have been his sons. But he picked up that cross and he walked with Jesus. And Jesus then bore that cross for him. Bore that cross for Barabbas. Bore that cross for you and for me, for Alexander, for Rufus, for our own children. And they took his clothes, because what I've read about crucifixion is that most of the time they stripped you completely naked. And you were up on that cross, humiliated and naked. And they cast lots and they divided up his clothes. Why? I don't know, because it was prophesied. To say that you had the clothes from this man. Soldiers were completely lost. I read that they would crucify women, and a lot of times they would put them the other direction on the cross and kind of have them wrapped around the cross. I like to think about a lot of these things. The pain of hanging from that cross. There are multiple depictions of this in many different movies. If you're interested in being disgusted and humiliated and sad about your own life and wondering how Jesus could possibly love us that much, it's because he loved God that much. I get asked constantly, why doesn't God just do away with Satan and do away with evil? And I said he will. And in his own time, he already has. But I can't answer these questions because I don't know. God knows. He'll take care of it when the time is right, when he's ready, when it's supposed to happen. We'll check out Luke's account next. Luke 22, 26 through 31, the last account. And as they led him away, they seized one Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and laid on him the cross to carry it behind Jesus. They put the cross. They took the cross from Jesus and gave it to this man, Simon. And Simon was then to deny himself, carry the cross of Jesus, and follow him to his crucifixion. Have you taken the flesh, denied it, picked up a cross, and followed Jesus to that Golgotha, and put your flesh on that cross and crucified it? Because that's what we're called to do. Read Romans, read Colossians, read the letters. It's what we're called to do. If you haven't crucified that flesh, if you haven't offered it up to God, it may still have power over you, power over me. It says, and there followed him a great multitude of people and of women who were mourning and lamenting for him. Behind him was a multitude, a great multitude of people. And of women mourning and lamenting over him. But Jesus turns to them. Isn't it interesting that in all three it mentions Simon of Cyrene? But turning to them, Jesus speaks to them. And this is what he says. He says, daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Don't cry for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. Do not weep for me. I'm good. I'm about to go to the Father. This is all about to be over for me. Do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. He says, for behold, the days are coming when they will say, blessed are the barren and the wombs that never bore and the breasts that never nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For if they do these things when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry? What's coming for Jerusalem? Jesus wept over Jerusalem. Do you remember that? This is from Isaiah 2:19 and 20, Hosea 20, verse 8, and Revelation 6:16. This verse in 31 is a proverb. What it means is, if the innocent has to suffer, if the not yet mature, if the innocent has to suffer, if the green, what about the dry? What about the guilty? How great will that be? I'm going to check Luke out in the Passion Translation just because I'm curious. Okay? This says, Remember, this is just a different translation. As the guards led Jesus to be crucified, there was an African man in the crowd named Simon from Libya. So this would be Simon of Cyrene. He had just arrived from a rural village to keep the feast of the Passover. So he had just arrived from the country, like we read about. The guards laid Jesus' cross on Simon's shoulders and forced him to walk behind Jesus, carrying his cross. It says that Cyrene is present-day Tripoli, Libya. I didn't know that. I don't know where that is. It says by this time, Jesus had been severely beaten, severely flogged. He had gone a while without sleep, and he was carrying quite a heavy load. So they had Simon carry it and walk behind him. If Simon knew Jesus, do you think he would have bore the cross for him? I just have all these questions. So massive crowds gathered to follow Jesus, including a number of women who were wailing with sorrow over him. And then this is where Jesus says to them, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. You should be weeping for yourselves and for your children. The day is coming when it will not be the women with children who are blessed, but those who are childless. And then you will say, the barren women are the most fortunate. Those who have never given birth and never nursed a child, they are more fortunate than we, for they will never see their children put to death. And the people will cry out for the mountains and hills to fall on top of them, to hide them from all that is to come. For if this is what they do to the living branch, what will they do to the dead ones?" This is interesting. So he's saying, if this is what they do to me, to the living branch, what will they do to you, the dead, the dry? And interesting takes on this, both good. But what do we take away from this today? Right? It's hard to think about Jesus in this light. Like, it's so hard to picture that I can't do it sometimes, or it doesn't seem real. Like, you ever have something so bad happen that it just doesn't seem real? Like, you just can't get your mind wrapped around it. That's what this does to me all the time, every time. It's hard to understand. It's hard to wrap my mind around. I hate it so much. Nonetheless, this is what happened. This is what took place. We have historical documentation of what took place. The very words Jesus spoke. What was coming for Jerusalem was awful. What Jesus was going through was awful. Isn't it amazing how he changes course and says, you used to cry over the barren, over those who couldn't have children, and feel bad for them. Now the people that have children are going to be crying and saying how blessed the barren are, because they'll never have to watch their children suffer and die. Can't imagine that. What's the spiritual implications we take away from this? How dare we live in the flesh? You got to carry that cross. You got to put the flesh right up on it. And you got to crucify that flesh. And you got to be reborn. You got to belong to Jesus and Him alone. You've got to be a new creation. Jesus had no problem doing this for us. God gave Him the strength He needed. And he went through with it because He loves God. I hope we're not just reading this as if it didn't happen, reading this as if it's just another story. It's a lot more than that. And there's a lot more coming. So, I really could talk about this for a long time, but I just don't want to. I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.